Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our four-part video series in collaboration with Apex Logistics. My name is Sarah Barnes-Humphrey. I'm the founder and host of Let's Talk Supply Chain, and this is the fourth and final episode of our deep dive with Apex. Last episode, I was joined by Jeremy of Apex to talk all about high technology, the challenges around the pandemic, the impact on supply chain transformation mindset, how the industry is changing for the future, and exactly how Apex is helping their customers to scale and adapt in a fast-paced, disruptive market. And today in episode 4, we'll be focusing on the industrial space. I'm joined by Josh Ireland, Corporate Business Development Manager at Apex, to talk more about overcoming these COVID challenges, stabilization in the market, improving visibility, and how Apex is helping their industrial customers to build stronger supply chains. So we've talked about e-commerce, health and pharma, and high tech, and we're moving across to the industrial vertical now. So it's a bit of a shift. So welcome, Josh, to the series. Why don't you tell us, what have you seen in this space? What have the challenges looked like both for Apex and for your clients? And how have those challenges differed from some of the other verticals we've talked about in this series?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me, Sarah. This is certainly an honor to speak on this incredible forum that you have created. So appreciate you having me. The industrial vertical has been a challenge, to say the least. One of the biggest challenges that we've seen with this vertical is the sourcing of raw materials. This is the biggest driver of many delays that companies are experiencing in this vertical. A lot of these raw material delays have certainly been due to COVID and have continued to compound with demand continuing to soar on a variety of industrial products. The most noticeable and publicized shortage stems from the semiconductor industry.
Yeah.
A lot is predicated on the movement of raw material in the manufacturing of semiconductors. They've been hit the hardest with raw materials not being made available due to COVID constraints in countries like Thailand, Malaysia, China. Moving goods within these countries with COVID changing constantly has been really difficult for many companies. We've also seen that it's been very difficult for companies to move hazardous cargo. Most of the carriers are focused on moving the easier freight, higher margin cargo, which means hazardous cargo is being passed up most of the time. So a lot of companies in the industrial space have been affected by the movement, or I should say lack of movement, of hazardous products.
Absolutely. And we noticed that in the latter part of 2021 with the Zim vessel, where it had caught on fire, I believe, due to hazardous goods. So I'm glad that you brought that up, because it's not necessarily a subject that we hear a lot about, but there are a lot of hazardous goods that are moving these days. So how has Apex been adapting to meet and overcome those challenges? And how did your approach maybe change based on where we were in the crisis? Because each phase has really required more agility and different innovations. I mean, it just seems like it's one thing after another for our supply chain professionals.
Yeah, that's certainly correct, Sarah. One of the unique solutions that we have at Apex, certainly our large air freight charter program, which is providing daily charters from many of the main gateways throughout Asia. This program allows us to position aircraft in lanes that need the most assistance throughout inter-Asia. It's not a passenger aircraft, so we don't have to be as reliant on commercial air freight capacity. This gives Apex more flexibility to help customers with their raw material movement, which again is one of the largest challenges that the industrial vertical and most industries for that matter are facing.
Absolutely. And I think, even though there might be some delays in the actual manufacturing side of things, at least that there's space available for you to move it once it's ready.
Absolutely.
So talk to me about a real life example of how you've worked with a customer through this, how you've been agile and been able to help them through some of these challenges.
Yeah, so I'd say the best real life example I can provide would certainly be in the semiconductor industry, which I know can fall underneath high tech as well, but it plays such a big part to so many different companies across multiple verticals. Apex has been able to successfully move chips around in the semiconductor space with our air freight capacity and capabilities. This has been huge for our customers in this space as they continue to source from new suppliers and need consistent service to keep their supply chain moving. And there's no better evidence of how the industrial space is being affected right now than when the automotive industry. I mean, if you look at any of the local dealerships, the lots are empty, no matter who the manufacturer is. Now, the main reason leading to the lack of vehicles available to the consumer is the shortage of semiconductors, which every car nowadays is relying on to operate. This is why you're seeing more and more auto manufacturers forming strategic partnerships with large chip makers to increase short and long-term supply of the semiconductor chips. And to give you an idea of my experience, personal experience, I ordered a truck last July that was supposed to be ready in October of 2021. It's now due to arrive in June of 2022 due to the lack of semiconductor availability. Yeah, so semiconductors are in such high demand and will continue to be for the foreseeable future. So it's vital that these companies have a partner like Apex to help ensure that they do not run into any line down situations once raw materials are actually available.
A whole year until you get your truck. I mean, that's crazy. I mean, that's not something that we would have heard of, pre-COVID. But I think the other thing to mention too around this is that it shut down a lot of lines, which also comes with penalties, right? So I think, knowing that there's space and capacity is really fundamental to being able to getting those lines back and running, getting people back to work, get the lines up and moving and reducing some of those penalties too, right?
Absolutely.
So, in the last episode, we talked about mindset because I do think COVID has almost demanded a mindset shift. We've had to embrace a lot of characteristics that are sometimes out of our comfort zone, collaboration, transparency, agility. What do you think about that? Have you seen the mindset around supply chain transformation change? And what have you seen internally within Apex, right? What have you noticed from your customers as well?
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. The mindset has certainly changed since pre-COVID and continues to evolve every day with the constant challenges that we and our customers are facing. Agility is a great word here. People are looking for agility and flexibility in their supply chains. The days of sourcing all of your product from one or two suppliers and partnering with, one forwarding company to simply move all ocean from point A to point B, it's over. Like that's just not happening
Right.
nowadays. And we're seeing more and more customers now multi-sourcing for both factories and service providers. And customers are getting nervous. It's if all of their products are sourced out of Vietnam and Vietnam is shut down due to COVID, your supply chain is jammed and at a complete standstill. More and more customers are sourcing from many different countries to limit their risk. Before COVID, most companies did not plan for air freight. Now those companies have to plan for air freight.
Yeah.
Instead of spot quoting, customers are looking for weekly allocation so now they can pick what to fly so their supply chain doesn't get disrupted. Or people never used to think of that in the past, or the air freight was kind of always bad to talk about, but now it's a necessity. And customers are now starting to plan weekly air charters to keep their goods moving. We've
Wow.
seen a shift from planned air freight to now planned charters. And what was once spot market air freight is now planned air freight. So even companies that didn't ship air freight pre-COVID, they're starting to do that now. And there's also, a big labor issue coming up in California with a likely port strike in July. We'll see what happens, but fingers crossed on that one. It's another example, though, to why you need to think ahead and build agility into your supply chain. It's customers that had everything going through Long Beach and LA are forced to look elsewhere now.
Absolutely. One other word I think I'm going to add to that is grace. I think that's my word for
Yes.
2022. We've all been through disruptions. We're still going through disruptions. Everybody is doing the best that they can. And so I think the word grace really needs to come up just a little bit more, right? I think grace leads into more collaboration and really thinking about others and what everybody is going through along the supply chain.
Absolutely.
So, do you have another example kind of to share with us of some of the agility, either internally or maybe externally, that you've seen?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Yeah, the aerospace industry has certainly been another one of the most effective sectors due to the COVID pandemic, and has been forced into a large transformation of their supply chain overall. I have a customer that I've been working with for many years in this space. And as of 3 years ago, I'd say 98% of their products were sourced from 3 vendors in one country and moved primarily via ocean. Air freight was never planned. It was only used when there was an issue. So when that country shut down for 2 weeks due to COVID, their supply chain was brought to a complete halt. And they almost went out of business because of it and not being able to source their raw materials in a timely manner. So we worked together to develop a plan to add agility and flexibility into their supply chain, which included a hefty amount of air freight planning due to the backlog that had been created. Almost 2 years later, now they source from 15 suppliers in 8 different countries and plan for weekly air freight allocation to ensure that their supply chain's moving at all times. Adapting to changing conditions and adding agility into their supply chain not only helped keep the company afloat, but it's helped them sustain continued growth during an incredibly difficult time.
Amazing story, but to go from 1 to 15 suppliers, I mean, I don't think that they're an anomaly here. I think we're hearing more and more of that, which is also exciting from a diversity standpoint as well as a sustainability standpoint, because now we're looking at diverse suppliers. We're looking elsewhere to be able to get some of our raw materials or even finished goods. And some of those are closer to home, some of those are in different countries, but we're now working with more people and creating that diversity and sustainability. So I love to hear that. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Of course.
So it's at this point we've been getting into the nitty gritty and sharing some of the details and practicalities that the listeners will really be wanting to know, right? How should they work with Apex? Your insights on the industry, what benefits you can bring. So let's tackle those common questions. Let's start with the big one. When do you think the ocean market will slow down and rates will normalize? I'm going to ask you to take out your crystal ball.
You beat me to it. I was going to say you've probably heard the analogy many times, but that crystal ball is very cloudy at best right now. Unfortunately, we don't anticipate the ocean market slowing down anytime soon in 2021. We believe it's going to remain pretty high. That is one of the largest changes I've seen since I started in the industry about 14 years ago. Before COVID, when discussing ocean contracts with customers, most of the discussion would revolve around cost, as there were many competitive options in the market. That's not the case anymore. While cost certainly plays a part, the focus now from our customers is allocation. Our focus at Apex is to understand what the customer's annual forecast looks like and work on procuring that space to provide consistent allocation for them. Sometimes that comes at a premium, but the value of providing consistent ocean capacity and allocation, specifically on the Trans-Pacific eastbound lanes, is second to none. And we're also seeing a change in behavior from the ocean carriers on how they approach their contract season. Many of the BCOs are locking into contracts earlier than usual, and in some instances are signing 2 to 3 year contracts. We're also hearing that the allocation that's being provided by the steamship lines to both BCOs and NVOs is being reduced. They have all the bargaining power right now, the steamship lines. They have every bit of the bargaining power. In one instance, we've seen that a BCO was going to the carriers asking for 20,000 FEUs, and the carriers were only going to offer either 60% of that, or they weren't bidding on it at all.
Wow.
So, gone are the days of committing 10,000 TEUs, then only providing 5,000 TEUs to the carrier without a penalty. Because if that happens in 2022, their allocation is going to be revoked. Again, with this, going back to the steamships having all that power.
Right. And allocation, when you say allocation, you mean capacity as well. You can use those interchangeably, right?
Yes, correct. Absolutely.
Great. Great. No, I just want to ask just because of the audience and who's going to be watching this video, but that is all critical information. I think that, shippers really, really need to know about. And if you're thinking about BCO, a BCO is a shipper as well. Somebody who's in the supply chain space, either importing and exporting goods for their organization. So how can we improve live time visibility so we can make better decisions? That's the biggest question, right?
That is a big one for sure. Visibility into the global supply chain is a necessity now more than ever. One of the challenges we've seen is getting accurate data, especially when you take into consideration all the ships that are waiting off the West Coast. Your
Mhm.
tracking might show you that it arrived into the port of LA, but what good is it if that ship isn't unloaded for another month because it's the 100th ship in line to be unloaded?
Mhm.
If you don't have good visibility and accurate data, it's impossible for our customers to make good decisions with their supply chain. Our customers need live visibility to properly plan on delays because in the current state of the transportation market, delays are inevitable. From a provider perspective, communication plays a key role in the visibility for our customers as well. We need to constantly be communicating with our internal teams and our transportation partners like the steamship lines, the airlines, as well as with our customers to provide proactive notification of where their freight is.
Yeah.
Lifetime visibility has gone from being a nice add-on to an undeniable responsibility to both service providers and customers. You have to have multiple partners to achieve that live visibility for air, ocean, trucking, origin for factories, for POs, customs clearance, all of that. There's no way to have just one source to give you all of that data in one place. It's important to link multiple parties for lifetime tracking. We've seen recently too at Apex a large uptick in EDI integration requests from our customers to continue to increase
Yeah.
their level of visibility into their supply chain. And this is a main focus for Apex moving forward.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. I mean, it's a game changer, it's a competitive advantage. It's really that driver of communication between you and your end customer, which really drives sales, right? So, what do you expect peak season to look like this year? I mean, peak season usually comes in about, what is it, June, July? So, share with us your thoughts on both air and ocean peak seasons for 2022.
Ooh, that's a big question as well. We're coming off a year where it was pretty much peak season all year long for both
Pretty
air and
much.
ocean markets, you
Hmm.
know? So predicting the market seems to be long gone in the past, like being able to accurately predict the market with things go the way it's going right now. International business travel is not going to come roaring back, as again, COVID will still be here for the foreseeable future, as recently proven with the different variants such as the Omicron virus. Most countries are going to continue to have strict regulations and COVID protocols. We anticipate the capacity to be limited again in 2022 as passenger aircraft still won't be flying at those pre-COVID levels.
Hmm.
And an interesting number, 40% of air freight capacity out of Asia flew via commercial to the US and EU markets pre-COVID. So without those flights, capacity will continue to be strained, making it difficult for customers to procure enough capacity to handle
Mhm.
their air freight needs. And that is again why it's important for our customers to plan for air capacity in the industrial space on a weekly basis and move your most important parts with this set allocation. Failing to plan is planning to fail is really the best way to put it.
So
And then
true.
from an ocean perspective, I feel there's a lot yet to be determined. It's consistent allocation will continue to be one of the biggest drivers for customers as they must keep their supply chain moving. Having strong ocean partners that can provide customers with agility and options in their ocean supply chain will be critical in hopes of avoiding the need to send a full container of product via air freight, which we've seen happen many times. So it'll be interesting to see what comes, especially after TPM this year, what direction the market's going to be going.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of great information there as well. And so, what are Apex's solutions in this space? How are you helping your customers and what are the benefits of working with you? I mean, we've already kind of talked about your air freight solution, but talk to me about the rest of it.
Yeah, absolutely. The air freight solution certainly plays a big part of what we're able to provide our customers. The weekly charter capacity on major lanes has given us the opportunity to provide that capacity to customers on a regular basis when commercial space is just not available.
Hmm.
Not only does this provide us more capacity out of APEC, it also saves our customers a lot of time on the destination breakdown of the freight. Because once it arrives into the major US gateways, the freight's moving on our own pretty much our own charters. So it means that we're not reliant on ground handlers in the US to break down the freight and deliver to our warehouse. It's our own team handling it.
Hmm.
So this can at times save up to a week in overall time in transit versus some of
Wow.
our competitors. Yeah, it's huge.
Wow.
It's huge.
Mhm.
So for us to continue to provide a high level of service and consistent capacity for our customers, it's imperative that they provide solid forecasts. That's the biggest thing we can do, and we take those forecasts and then get the procurement that's needed. We From a ocean perspective, we also kind of were thrusted into the ocean charter business this past year, and we anticipate that continuing to mature this year, and that our ocean charter capacity will continue to grow. It's going to be a focus for us moving forward as we continue to provide different options for our customers. And it's really important for us just to listen to what our customers' needs are as they're changed by the day.
Yeah.
And we need to continue to think outside of the box and be proactive with the solutions that we put forth, because remaining status quo with the supply chain is just not the answer, especially in 2022.
Yeah, absolutely. Communication, collaboration. These are all words that I think we need to hear a little bit more of in logistics that we haven't heard in previous years. So we're looking towards maybe a little bit of stabilization, but not until maybe the end of the year. We're looking towards maybe a return to somewhat of a normal, not pre-COVID normal, but something of normalcy. Or maybe even a market that's a little bit more predictable, hopefully by 2023. What else do you think we should expect over the next few years? What should we be keeping our eye on?
Yeah, no, that's another loaded question for sure. In my opinion, people are going to have to learn to expect the unexpected and have supply chains that are built around flexibility. I know we're saying that word a lot, but it's so true. And as mentioned previously, international business travel is going to continue to be down for the foreseeable future, which takes a lot of capacity out of the network and causes constraints for customers. I also believe we'll continue to see elevated ocean rates that won't settle for possibly a year or two. This is my opinion, but
Oh,
we'll see. We'll see. We're patiently waiting to see what comes of the labor negotiations on the West Coast. But this is a big variable that we need to pay close attention to, because any more disruption into what we are experiencing right now is going to be incredibly difficult.
hmm,
In the US, inventory levels are really depleted right now. And the next 12 to 24 months, companies are going to be focusing on restocking inventory to the historical levels. If you have inventory, you're able to sell product right now. But a lot of people don't have inventory, which adds for the growing demand of air and ocean freight.
absolutely. So I'm saying 2023, you're saying 2024, 2025. So I guess we'll just have to, keep watching and sort of see what happens. How is Apex going to keep focusing on key areas of change and continuing to help your customers sort of navigate this difficult market and what we're going to be seeing either for the next year or maybe 3 years?
Yeah, so Apex is one of Asia's largest international freight forwarders, especially when it comes to air freight. We're in a good place, being one of the largest capacity holders in the market, and to help people out again with that flexibility. We'll continue to increase our capacity commitments, both with air and ocean freight, to provide more and more options to our valued customers. We're all in it together. We're fighting. There's good days, there's bad days. It's not easy, but the best thing we can do is be transparent with our partners and continue to communicate, communicate, communicate.
That is such amazing advice. And what a perfect thought to leave us with. Thank you so much, Josh, for joining me today and shining a light on the industrial space. Once again, it's given us all a lot to ponder. And of course, thank you for rounding out the series. It's been an incredible 4 episodes, and I hope all of our listeners have enjoyed them and taken plenty of insights and inspiration from them. You can find out more about Apex Logistics and how they could help you and your business over on apexglobe.com. And you can hear more from us over on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, or wherever you hang out, and let us know what you thought of this incredible series. Thanks again to Apex for making this happen, and I'm looking forward to our next collaboration. See you all soon.